All eyes turned to the hunched woman pushing the cleaning cart across the gleaming marble of the Blackwell and Associates office. Her faded blue uniform reeked of cheap chemicals, and her worn shoes squeaked against the floor she herself cleaned every night. It was a busy Friday when Helena Rodriguez, 48, entered the executive floor of the prestigious Wall Street law firm. Her hair pulled back in a simple bun hid gray strands, and her calloused hands gripped the mop with the familiarity of someone who had repeated that movement for years. Helena had worked as a night janitor for 5 years, invisible to the lawyers in their $3,000 suits, transparent to the secretaries organizing million-dollar cases, non-existent to the partners who decided the fates of entire corporations. She cleaned the same offices where dozens of brilliant lawyers worked, her hands touching the same law books she once mastered. The office was particularly tense that night. A group of lawyers was gathered in the large conference room, heatedly debating a case no one wanted to touch. Marcus Williams, a 17-year-old black teenager from the Bronx, was being charged with first-degree murder. All the evidence pointed to him: fingerprints on the weapon, grainy video supposedly showing him fleeing the scene, and questionable witnesses who swore they'd seen him. The district attorney was thirsty for blood, and the boy's family had no money to hire adequate defense. It was the kind of case that destroyed lawyers' careers, the kind no one wanted on their resume. Helena was cleaning the hallway next to the conference room when she heard the loud voices. She tried to ignore them, as she always did, but something in the words made her heart race. "It's a lost cause," said Richard Blackwell, the 55-year-old senior partner, adjusting his Hermes tie while flipping through documents. His perfectly styled hair and arrogant posture screamed privilege. "The kid is guilty. All the evidence says so. Why would we waste the firm's resources on an impossible pro bono case?" "I completely agree," said Amanda Chin, an ambitious 30-year-old lawyer, her eyes shining with the coldness of someone who saw the law as career stepping stones. "We have corporate clients paying millions. Why waste time on a criminal who can't pay us?" "Besides," added Michael Torres, a 35-year-old corporate lawyer known for his cruel jokes, "a Bronx teenager accused of murder? He's probably guilty anyway. Statistically speaking, of course." He laughed at his own observation. Helena stopped cleaning, her body tensing. She recognized that kind of talk, the same that had condemned her daughter years ago. "Judge Peterson is pressuring us to take the case," said Jennifer Scott, the HR manager, leafing through papers. "He says it's our social responsibility, as one of New York's biggest firms. But honestly, I think we should decline. We can't risk our reputation." "Exactly," exclaimed Richard. "Our reputation was built on victories, not impossible charity cases." Helena approached the conference room door, her cart making a small noise. The lawyers didn't even look in her direction. "Excuse me," she said quietly. No one responded. "Excuse me," she repeated, a bit louder. Amanda finally looked irritated. "What? Don't you see we're in an important meeting?" "Sorry, but I heard you talking about the Williams case." Michael let out a laugh. "The janitor is eavesdropping on our conversations now. This is great." "Listen," said Jennifer, looking at Helena with disdain. "You're here to clean, not to meddle in legal matters you don't understand. Get back to your work." Helena took a deep breath. Every cell in her body screamed for her to stay quiet, remain invisible, keep cleaning. But then she thought of Marcus Williams, a teenager whose life was being thrown away because no one cared enough to really look at the case. She thought of her daughter, Sophia, who had also been unjustly judged, and how no one had fought for her. "You're making a mistake," said Helena, her voice firmer now. Richard looked up, finally paying attention to her, but only to laugh. "Excuse me? You, a janitor, are telling us, lawyers trained at the best law schools in the country, that we're making a mistake?" "Yes." Helena stepped into the room. "Because you are. I saw the documents on Amanda's desk last night when I was cleaning. The evidence against Marcus Williams is full of holes." Amanda stood up, furious. "You were reading my documents? That's invasion of privacy. Jennifer, fire this woman now." "Wait," said a calm voice from the back of the room. It was James Morrison, a 70-year-old retired lawyer who worked as a consultant. His wise eye studied Helena with interest. "Let her speak. What holes did you see exactly?" Helena looked at James, recognizing in him a spark of something the others didn't have: genuine curiosity. "The fingerprints on the weapon," Helena began, her voice gaining the firmness she hadn't used in years. "The report says they were found on the trigger and handle, but the angle is wrong." "Wrong how?" asked James, leaning forward. "Marcus is left-handed. It's in his school report, page 43. But the fingerprints on the weapon are from a right-handed person. The thumb is positioned on the left side of the handle, the index finger on the right trigger. Impossible for a left-handed person to hold naturally." The room fell silent. Richard rolled his eyes. "This is ridiculous. How would a janitor know?" "And the video," Helena continued, ignoring him. "The one that supposedly shows Marcus fleeing the scene. The timestamp is wrong." "What?" Amanda grabbed the laptop quickly. "The video shows 11:47 p.m., but the incident report registers the shot at 11:52 p.m. How could Marcus be fleeing 5 minutes before the crime happened?" Amanda looked at the laptop screen, her eyes widening. She's right. The timestamp is wrong. How did no one notice this?" Michael stood up, uncomfortable. "Maybe it's just a typo in the report." "Or maybe," said Helena, "you were all so busy assuming the boy was guilty that you didn't bother checking basic details." Richard slammed his hand on the table. "This is absurd. Who do you think you are to come in here and question our work? You clean bathrooms, for God's sake. And you're about to let an innocent boy be sentenced to life in prison." Helena shot back, her voice cutting. James stood up slowly, his eyes still fixed on Helena. He walked up to her, studying her face. "I know you," he said softly. "Helena Rodriguez. You were Helena Martins before you married." Helena's heart stopped. She hadn't heard that name in years. "James Morrison," she whispered. "It's been a long time." "Wait," said Amanda, confused. "You know each other?" James didn't take his eyes off Helena. "This janitor you're all treating with such contempt is Helena Martins Rodriguez. 12 years ago, she was the most brilliant criminal defense attorney in New York. She won 47 consecutive cases, never lost a jury trial, had offers from every major firm in the city." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard let out a nervous laugh. "That's impossible. If she was so brilliant, what is she doing cleaning floors?" "Because the system you all serve so well destroyed her," said James, his voice laden with sadness. "Helena, please tell them." Helena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 12 years of pain pressing on her chest. She didn't want to relive that, but she looked at the documents about Marcus Williams on the table and knew she had to. "My daughter, Sophia, was 16, Helena began, her voice trembling. "She was accused of theft at a department store. $100 necklace. The cameras showed her leaving the store with it around her neck, but what the cameras didn't show was that she had bought it and kept the receipt in her pocket." Amanda sat down slowly, her face losing its previous arrogance. "The store manager accused her anyway," Helena continued. "Said she was the type who steals. Sophia was Latina, wore thrift store clothes. To him, that was enough evidence. The prosecutor wanted to make an example. They wanted to try her as an adult." "My God," murmured Jennifer. "I tried to defend my daughter," said Helena, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I showed the receipt, brought witnesses who were with her at the store. But the judge was having a bad day. When he tried to rush the process by ignoring crucial evidence, I objected, strongly. Said he was being biased, that he was destroying an innocent girl's life because of his prejudices." James gently placed his hand on Helena's shoulder. "He charged me with contempt of court." Helena wiped away a tear. "And when I tried to present more evidence outside protocol to protect my daughter, he charged me with obstruction of justice. I lost my license. I was sentenced to 3 years in prison." "And Sophia?" asked Amanda, her voice now soft. Helena closed her eyes, the pain still as fresh as the day it happened. "Sophia was found guilty. They sent her to a juvenile detention center. She couldn't take it. The other girls bullied her. The guards ignored her pleas for help. 6 months later, while I was in prison and couldn't do anything, my 16-year-old daughter hanged herself with a bedsheet in her cell. The silence in the room was absolute. Amanda had tears streaming down her face. Michael was pale. Even Richard had lost his arrogance, looking at Helena with something that could be confusion or shame. "Helena," James began, his voice choked. "I served my sentence," said Helena, wiping her face. 3 years. When I got out, my license was permanently revoked. My husband had left me, unable to deal with the pain. I had nothing. No one wanted to hire an ex-convict, so I took the only job I could get, cleaning offices at night. She looked at each of them, her eyes red but steady. "And do you know why I'm here now, in this specific office? Because it's the only place where I can still touch the law, where I can read cases, study arguments, feel like I'm still part of something I once loved, even if it's just through documents left on desks while I clean." Richard cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "That's a tragic story, but that doesn't change the fact that Marcus Williams is exactly like my daughter," Helena cut in. "A teenager unjustly accused, manipulated evidence, a system that's already decided he's guilty because of where he's from, what he looks like. And you, who have the power to make a difference, are too worried about your reputation to care. But the evidence," Amanda began, "is full of holes." Helena approached the table, picking up the documents without asking permission. "Look here. The witnesses who say they saw Marcus at the scene, they all have criminal records. One of them has a pending plea deal with the prosecutor. Do you really think testimonies like that are reliable?" She flipped through more pages, her mind working at the speed she hadn't used in years. And here, the ballistics report. The weapon was found at a sewer 3 blocks from the scene. But Marcus has no history of violence, never been arrested. He's president of his school's chess club and works part-time at a library. Do you really think a kid like that would commit cold-blooded murder and then be careless enough to leave the weapon in such an obvious place? James took the documents from Helena's hands, studying them carefully. "She's right on every point. How the hell did we let this slip?" "Because you weren't really looking," said Helena. "You saw a Bronx teenager accused of homicide and assumed guilt, exactly like they did with my daughter." Michael stood up, walking to the window. I didn't realize. I thought it was just another routine case." "There's no such thing as just another routine case when someone's life is at stake," said Helena, her voice passionate now. "Every case is a person, a family, a future that can be destroyed or saved depending on how much you care to actually look for the truth." Amanda wiped away tears. "Helena, Ms. Rodriguez, you said the weapon was in the wrong hand. How did you know Marcus is left-handed just by looking at the school report?" Page 43. Note from the physical education teacher. "Marcus has excellent coordination with his left hand in basketball. Small details matter. They always have." Richard was silent now, rereading the documents. For the first time since Helena had known him, he seemed genuinely thoughtful. "Even if you're right about the holes in the evidence," he said finally, "we can't just take the case. You don't have a license. You can't represent him." "I know," said Helena, "but you can. And I can help. Behind the scenes. As a consultant." "Consultant?" Jennifer gave a bitter laugh. "You're technically our cleaning employee. That would be irregular. Irregular is letting an innocent boy rot in prison because you're afraid of tarnishing your perfect reputations." Helena shot back. James slammed his hand on the table, but not with anger, with determination. "I'll take the case. I'm retired, but I still have my license. And I want Helena as my lead consultant." "James," said Richard, "you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." James looked at the senior partner. "Helena is the best legal mind I've ever known. If she says Marcus is innocent, I believe her. And if this firm values profit over justice, then maybe I'm in the wrong place." Amanda stood up, wiping her face. "I want to help too. I want to learn from Helena. I judged her. Judged Marcus. I need to do better." Michael turned from the window. Count me in too. If there's a chance to save this kid, we need to try. Richard looked around the room, seeing his colleagues aligning against his initial objection. He sighed heavily. Fine. But this can't become a circus. We keep everything discreet. Helena works behind the scenes. And if this blows up in our faces... It won't, said Helena firmly. Because I'm going to make sure we find the truth. Jennifer still looked uncomfortable. I'll need to document this properly. Change your employment status. Create contracts. Do what you need to do, said James. But do it quickly. Marcus's trial starts in 3 weeks. In the following days, Helena dove into the case as if the last 12 years had never happened. James got her a small office, no longer the cleaning supply closet where she stored her equipment, but a real space with a desk, computer, and full access to case files. Amanda became her shadow, watching fascinated as Helena reconstructed the crime timeline, identifying inconsistencies no one else had noticed. Look here, said Helena, pointing to a map of the area. The main witness, Tyrone Jackson, says he saw Marcus fleeing down Malcolm X Avenue at 11:50 p.m. But the police report shows Tyrone was at his house on 145th Street at that time, more than a mile away. How could he have seen? Amanda shook her head, impressed. He lied. But why? Because the prosecutor offered to reduce drug trafficking charges against him if he testified. Helena showed another document. It's all here. Tyrone had motivation to lie. Michael entered the office carrying coffee. I got security footage from all the stores in the area. Hours of video. Perfect, said Helena. We need to find where Marcus really was when the crime happened. They worked late into the night, Helena leading like a general commanding troops. Her legal mind, dormant for years but never dead, was fully awake now. Found it, shouted Amanda at 2 a.m. Look at this camera from a bodega on 147th Street. That's Marcus, with the distinctive red hoodie. And the timestamp shows 11:48 p.m. Helena approached the screen. And he's buying milk and bread. For his mother, probably. The bodega is a 15-minute walk from the crime scene. There's no way he could have committed the murder at 11:52 p.m. and been there at 11:48 p.m. Unless he can time travel, said Michael, smiling. We need the receipt, said Helena. If the bodega kept transaction records from that day, we'll have concrete proof of Marcus's alibi. James entered, carrying a thick folder. I have news. I got a court order to examine the weapon. We're going to have our own ballistics expert analyze the fingerprints. Excellent, said Helena, because I'm convinced those fingerprints were planted. Richard appeared at the door, his expression still skeptical, but less hostile. Marcus's family is here. They want to meet the team defending their son. Helena felt a tightness in her chest. She hadn't met Marcus's mother yet, the woman whose pain she understood so deeply. In the conference room, an African-American woman of about 40 waited, holding the hand of a younger girl. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was a fierce determination in them. Mrs. Williams, said James gently, this is our team. Amanda Chun, Michael Torres, and this is Helena Rodriguez, our lead legal consultant. Mrs. Williams looked at Helena, studying her face. Thank you for believing in my son. Everyone has already condemned him. They say he's a murderer. But I know my Marcus. He wouldn't do this. Helena knelt in front of the woman, taking her hands. I know. And we're going to prove it. I promise. Do you have children? Asked Mrs. Williams. Helena closed her eyes for a moment. I had a daughter. Sophia. Had. She was taken from me, said Helena softly, by a system that failed her, just like it's failing Marcus. But I won't let it happen again. I won't lose another child to injustice. Mrs. Williams began to cry, and the two women embraced, two mothers united by pain and determination not to let the system win again. The younger girl, who had been quiet until then, spoke. My brother didn't kill anyone. He was buying milk for breakfast. He always does that on Friday nights, because the market is cheaper. What's your name, dear? Asked Helena. Alicia. I'm 12. Alicia, can you tell me what time Marcus left the house that night? Like 11:30. I was watching TV, and he said, "I'll be back in 20 minutes." Helena and Amanda exchanged glances. This confirmed the timeline they were building. In the days that followed, the team worked tirelessly. Helena coordinated everything with the precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. Each team member had specific tasks, and she guided them with expertise that left everyone impressed. Michael got the bodega receipt. The transaction was recorded at 11:48 p.m., exactly as Alicia had said. It was impossible for Marcus to be in two places at once. Amanda found 3 more security cameras showing Marcus walking calmly through the streets, unhurried, no nervousness, nothing indicating someone fleeing a crime. But it was Helena who made the most important discovery. "Look at this," she said one morning, gathering everyone. "I revisited the ballistics reports. The fingerprints on the weapon aren't just from a right-handed person. They're very clean. Too clear." "What do you mean?" asked James. "When someone fires a weapon, especially in a stressful situation, the prints get smudged by recoil, sweat, movement. But these prints look like they were carefully pressed onto the weapon. Someone took Marcus's prints from somewhere else and transferred them." Richard, who had gradually become more involved in the case, leaned forward. "How would we prove that?" "Our ballistics expert has already confirmed the impossible position for a left-handed person," said Helena. "But I want to go deeper. I want to know where the police got Marcus's fingerprints for comparison." Amanda searched through the files. "It says here they were collected from a water cup they offered him during interrogation." "Perfect," Helena smiled. "A water cup. Easy to manipulate. Easy to transfer prints to a weapon. We need to question who had access to both the cup and the weapon before it was sent for analysis." Michael made some calls and discovered something disturbing. The detective in charge of the case, Daniel Foster, has had disciplinary problems before. 2 accusations of evidence tampering that were dismissed. "Bingo," said Helena. "James, we need a preliminary hearing. We need to question Detective Foster under oath about evidence collection procedures." The hearing took place a week before the trial. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, onlookers, and social justice activists who had heard about the case through social media. Helena sat in the front row, not as a lawyer, but as a consultant. James was at the defense table with Amanda by his side. Marcus, wearing a borrowed suit that was a bit too big, looked much younger than his 17 years. Detective Foster took the witness stand, confident and arrogant. James began gently. "Detective Foster, can you describe the procedure you followed when collecting the defendant's fingerprints?" "Standard procedure," Foster replied. "We offered water during interrogation. He drank. We collected the cup for analysis." "And how long after did you collect the weapon from the crime scene?" "A few hours." "A few hours?" James raised an eyebrow. "The report says the weapon was found at 2 a.m., but wasn't cataloged as evidence until 11 a.m., 9 hours later. Where was the weapon during that time?" Foster hesitated. "In my car. I had to finish other tasks before taking it to the evidence department." Helena wrote something on a piece of paper and passed it to Amanda, who whispered to James. 9 hours in your personal car," said James slowly. "Enough time to transfer fingerprints from a cup to a weapon, isn't that right?" "Objection," shouted the prosecutor. "Speculation." "I'll rephrase," said James. "Detective Foster, during those 9 hours, did anyone else have access to your car?" "No. Well, my partner had the keys." "Your partner, Detective Raymond Mills, who was suspended 6 months ago for misconduct, correct?" Foster was sweating now. "That has nothing to do with." "It has everything to do with it." James placed a document in front of him. "This is a record of text messages between you and Detective Mills on the night of the crime. Read the message from 3:42 a.m. aloud, please." Foster looked at the paper, his face turning white. I don't remember." "Let me refresh your memory," said James. "We need to close this case fast. The chief wants results. Do whatever it takes." "That sounds like an invitation to tamper with evidence, doesn't it?" "Objection." The prosecutor was on his feet. "These messages weren't presented in discovery." "They were presented." Yesterday, Your Honor, said Amanda, standing. According to procedural rules, the judge, an African-American woman of about 60 named Judge Morrison, studied the documents. Objection denied. Continue, Mr. Morrison. James spent the next hour dismantling Foster's testimony, using every hole Helena had identified. When he finished, even the prosecutor looked shaken. But Helena knew they needed more. They needed to find the real killer. That night, Helena was alone in the office, revisiting every detail of the case, when something caught her attention. A photo of the crime scene showed graffiti on a nearby wall, a specific tag she recognized. She called Michael. I need you to research local gangs. Specifically, someone who uses the symbol of a cobra wrapped around a fist. Why? Because there's a tag of that symbol on the wall 2 meters from the victim, and Marcus has no gang affiliation. Michael came back an hour later with information. It's the mark of the Bronx Cobras. Small gang, but violent. They control some drug corners. Did the victim, Robert Chun, have any connection to drugs? Asked Helena. Amanda searched through the files. Not officially, but look at this. 3 weeks before he was killed, Robert deposited $15,000 in his account. A 22-year-old college student who worked part-time at a coffee shop. Drug courier, said Helena immediately. He was transporting for someone, probably for the Cobras, and either he stole the money or tried to get out of the business. So the Cobras killed him, Michael completed, and planted evidence on Marcus to divert the investigation from them, said Helena. We need to find who really shot Robertson. James entered, hearing the last part of the conversation. How are we going to do that? Gang members aren't just going to confess. Helena smiled. They won't. But people talk when they're drunk or nervous. Michael, do you know any investigative journalists who cover organized crime? I know a guy, Tommy Chun. He's covered the Bronx for 20 years. Ask him to investigate. Discreetly. I want to know who in the Cobras had a problem with Robert. Tommy Chun was a veteran 45-year-old journalist with deep connections in the Bronx streets. When Michael approached him, Tommy was intrigued by the case. Robert Chun was my distant cousin, Tommy revealed. Family never believed that Marcus Kidd killed him. Robert was involved in something dangerous, everyone knew. 3 days later, Tommy came back with explosive information. I found someone willing to talk, he said in an urgent meeting at the office. A former Cobras member named Luis Rodriguez. He left the gang last month and is afraid of retaliation. He says he saw who killed Robert. Helena leaned forward. Will he testify? If you can get protection for him, yes. He says it was a guy called Diablo. Real name Marcus Jennings. Ironic, right? He's one of the Cobra's lieutenants. Why would Diablo kill Robert? Asked Amanda. Robert was stealing money from deliveries, Tommy explained. Small amounts, but they added up. Diablo found out and decided to make an example. And when they saw there was a kid named Marcus living nearby, they thought it was perfect to plant evidence on him. James hit the table. We need Luis under police protection immediately, and we need him to tell this story to the judge. Richard, who was now fully invested in the case, picked up the phone. I'll call Captain Richardson. He owes me a favor. Luis Rodriguez was a thin, nervous 23-year-old with tattoos. He clearly regretted. When Helena met him at the police safe house, she saw in his eyes the same fear her daughter must have felt. Why are you doing this? Helena asked gently. Leaving the gang, testifying against them. You know the risk. Luis looked at his tattooed hands. Because I'm tired of seeing innocent people pay for our shit. That Marcus Kidd, he didn't do anything. And they were going to let him rot in prison to save Diablo. That ain't right. Do you have family? Asked Helena. I have a 15-year-old sister. She looks at me like I'm worth something. I want her to keep thinking that. I want to be the kind of brother who does the right thing. Helena smiled, tears in her eyes. Your sister is lucky to have you. The final hearing took place on a rainy Friday. The courtroom was even more packed than before. The story had spread on social media, and several racial justice activists were outside, carrying signs saying, Justice for Marcus, and in no more unjustly imprisoned teens. Luis took the witness stand, visibly nervous. The prosecutor tried to discredit his testimony, calling him a criminal and a liar. But James was prepared. "Mr. Rodriguez, do you have anything to gain by lying here today?" "No," said Luis. "Actually, I have everything to lose. The Cobras are going to want to kill me for this. But I can't live knowing an innocent kid is locked up for something Diablo did." "Describe what you saw on the night of March 15th, said James. Luis took a deep breath. "I was making a delivery near Malcolm X Avenue. I saw Diablo arguing with Robertson. Robert was saying he was getting out, that he didn't want to work for the gang anymore. Diablo got furious, said nobody leaves the Cobras. Then he pulled a gun and shot Robert, twice in the chest." "What happened after?" "Diablo panicked. He saw a kid buying stuff at a bodega nearby. He waited for the kid to leave, followed him for a while. When the kid stopped to tie his shoe, Diablo grabbed the cup he had left on the edge of a trash can, said he was gonna fix the problem. An hour later, he called me saying he'd planted the weapon with the kid's prints." The room exploded in murmurs. The judge banged the gavel calling for order. The prosecutor was pale. "Your Honor, I request a recess to review this new evidence." "Denied," said Judge Morrison firmly. "We've heard enough. Mr. Prosecutor, do you maintain the charges against Marcus Williams?" The prosecutor looked at his papers, then at Marcus, then at the audience, full of hopeful faces. "No, Your Honor," he said, finally defeated. "The prosecution drops all charges against Marcus Williams." The room exploded in applause and shouts. Mrs. Williams ran to hug her son, both crying. Alicia jumped for joy. James and Amanda hugged, wide smiles on their faces. Helena remained seated, tears silently streaming down her face. She had saved Marcus. She had done what she couldn't do for Sophia. Marcus approached her, his eyes red but shining with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "You saved my life." Helena stood and hugged the boy. "No, dear. You saved mine. You gave me purpose again." In the following weeks, Helena's story spread nationally. She became a symbol of redemption and second chances. But more importantly, she realized she had found her true purpose. One afternoon, James sought her out in her office, now a real office, with her name on the door. "I have a proposal for you," he said. "What if we created a nonprofit organization focused on defending teenagers from underserved communities who've been unjustly accused?" Helena looked out the window, seeing Manhattan stretch before her. "I'd love that. But let's go beyond that. I want to train other ex-convicts who had legal training. Give them the second chance I was given." "The Second Chance Project," said James, smiling. "I like the name. And I want Amanda and Michael as co-directors," Helena added. "They learned fast. They have the skills and more. Importantly, they have the heart." Amanda, who had heard from the doorway, entered with tears in her eyes. "Helena, you would do that for me? After how I treated you in the beginning?" "Exactly because of how you treated me in the beginning," said Helena. "Because you recognized your mistake and changed. That's growth. That's evolution. It's exactly the kind of person we want in this project." Michael appeared behind Amanda. "Count me in too. I'm tired of defending corporations that only care about profit. I want to do something that matters." 6 months later, the Second Chance Project was officially launched at an event at the Bronx Community Center. More than 200 people attended, lawyers, activists, families of teenagers who had been unjustly accused, and several ex-convicts interested in the reintegration program. Helena was on stage, alongside James, Amanda, Michael, and Marcus Williams, who now worked as an intern for the project while finishing high school. "A year ago," Helena began, her voice echoing through the hall, "I was invisible, cleaning offices at night, hiding from the world, punishing myself for not being able to save my daughter. But then a boy was unjustly accused, and something inside me refused to stay silent." She looked at Marcus, who smiled proudly. "The justice system isn't perfect. It fails. Often, it fails those who need it most, the poor, minorities, young people who have no voice. My daughter Sophia was one of those failures. Marcus almost was another." Helena paused, wiping away a tear. The Second Chance Project exists to ensure fewer young people are destroyed by a system that judges them before knowing them. We'll offer free legal representation, adequate investigation, and most importantly, we'll treat them as human beings who deserve justice, not as statistics. The audience applauded enthusiastically. But we're also going to do something more, Helena continued. We're going to give second chances to people like me. Ex-convicts who had legal training, who made mistakes, but who still have knowledge and passion to help others. We'll train them, mentor them, and help them reintegrate into the profession they love. Among the audience was Kevin Santos, a 52-year-old former lawyer who had lost his license after being convicted of drug use. He had heard about the project through a friend and came hopeful but skeptical. After the event, Kevin approached Helena. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said timidly, "I heard your story. It's similar to mine. I lost my license 8 years ago. I've been working in construction since then. But law, it never left me. Is there really a chance for someone like me?" Helena looked at him, seeing hope and fear mixed in his eyes. It was the same look she saw in the mirror a year ago. "Kevin," she said gently, "if you're willing to do the work, if you're committed to using your skills to help others, then yes, there's a chance, a second chance, and we'll walk alongside you." Kevin began to cry, years of pain and shame finally finding an outlet. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for believing people like me still have value." In the following months, the Second Chance Project grew rapidly. They took 15 cases in the first quarter, winning 13 of them. The 2 they lost were because the evidence really proved guilt. But even so, Helena ensured the teenagers had fair representation and appropriate sentences, not the excessive penalties ambitious prosecutors often sought. Kevin Santos became one of the first graduates of the reintegration program. After 6 months of intensive training, mentorship, and supervision, he was about to have his license conditionally restored. "I never thought I'd see this day," said Kevin one morning, looking at his reintegration documents. "I thought my life was over, that I'd never be a lawyer again." "Your life didn't end," said Helena. "It just took a different path. And now you have something you didn't have before, true empathy for our clients. You know what it's like to be judged, condemned, and forgotten. That makes you a better lawyer." Kevin's first case was defending a 15-year-old girl named Maria Lopez, accused of assault after defending her mother from an abusive boyfriend. The prosecutor wanted to try her as an adult. Helena supervised the case, watching as Kevin worked with the precision and passion of someone who knew exactly how much was at stake. "The defense calls Maria Lopez to the stand," said Kevin in court. Maria went up, small and scared, but Kevin gave her an encouraging smile. "Maria, can you tell us what happened on the night of August 10th? "I came home from school," said Maria, her voice trembling, "and heard my mother screaming. I ran in and saw Roberto, her boyfriend, hitting her. She was bleeding. I tried to stop him, but he was too strong, so I grabbed a vase that was on the table and hit him with it." "Were you trying to hurt Roberto or protect your mother?" "Protect my mother. I thought he was going to kill her." Kevin presented photos of Maria's mother's injuries: severe bruising, a black eye, split lip. He presented a history of police calls showing a pattern of abuse by Roberto. "Your Honor," said Kevin in his closing argument, "Maria Lopez is not a criminal. She's a brave daughter who did what any of us would like to have the courage to do: protect someone we love from violence. Trying her as an adult, destroying her future for an act of justified protection, would be a travesty of justice." The judge took only 10 minutes to decide. Charges dropped. Maria Lopez is free to go. Kevin hugged Maria and her mother, tears streaming down his face. Helena watched from afar, her heart swelling with pride. "You did perfectly," she said afterward. "Sophia would be proud of what we've built." 1 year after the launch, the Second Chance Project had expanded to include a full legal clinic, a mentorship program, and partnerships with 3 local law schools where students could do internships. Richard Blackwell, the senior partner who had initially treated Helena with such disdain, became one of the project's biggest financial supporters. He had changed profoundly since that night when Helena corrected the errors in Marcus's case. "I spent my entire career chasing money and prestige," he confessed at a board meeting. "I thought that was success. But seeing what you do here, seeing lives being saved and transformed, this is real success." He paused, visibly emotional. "Helena, when you walked into that conference room a year ago, I treated you like you were nothing, like cleaning floors defined you. But you showed me that true value doesn't come from titles or salaries. It comes from purpose and compassion." "Richard," said Helena gently, "you changed too. You grew. That's also redemption." Jennifer Scott, the HR manager who had wanted to fire Helena, now coordinated the volunteer program, bringing professionals from Blackwell and Associates to offer pro bono hours through the project. "I judged you," said Jennifer in a private conversation with Helena. "I saw a janitor and assumed that was all you were. But you taught me that everyone has a story, everyone has value, and everyone deserves to be seen." 2 years after saving Marcus Williams, Helena was in her office when she received an unexpected call. "Ms. Rodriguez, my name is Rachel Goldstein. I'm from the State Bar Council. We'd like to schedule a meeting with you." Helena's heart raced. "About what?" "About your license. There's a movement to consider you for full reinstatement. Several prominent members of the legal community have sent letters of support." Helena had to sit down, her legs suddenly weak. Her license, after 12 years, the possibility of being officially a lawyer again. When she told James, he smiled widely. "It was only a matter of time. The work you've been doing, the lives you've saved, the council would be crazy not to recognize it." The hearing took place 3 weeks later. Helena entered the room where 12 council members sat, the same ones who had revoked her license years ago. Rachel Goldstein, now council president, opened the session. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is an extraordinary situation. Your license was revoked for contempt of court and obstruction of justice. Normally, that would be permanent." Helena nodded, prepared for rejection. "However," Rachel continued, "we've extensively reviewed your original case. We read the transcripts of your daughter's trial, and we consulted with Judge Patterson, who presided over your contempt case." An elderly man of about 70 entered the room. Helena recognized him immediately. It was the judge who had destroyed her life. "Judge Patterson has something to say," said Rachel. The judge approached Helena, his eyes full of regret. "Ms. Rodriguez," he began, his voice choked. "I've spent the last 10 years revisiting that case. Your daughter, Sophia. What I did was unforgivable. I was under pressure, stressed with personal problems. I took my frustrations out on you and your daughter." He paused, wiping away a tear. "When I learned that that she killed herself, I was devastated. I sought psychological help. I changed how I conduct my courtroom, but nothing can undo what I did." Helena was frozen, unable to speak. "I came here today to testify on your behalf," said Judge Patterson, "to say you were unjustly punished, that your reaction was that of a desperate mother trying to protect her daughter from an incompetent judge, and that you deserve to have your license restored." Helena finally found her voice. "Why? After everything, why do this?" "Because it's the right thing to do," said the judge simply, "and because Sophia deserves me to do the right thing, even if it's too late for her." Rachel spoke again. "We've also received letters of support from Richard Blackwell, from Judge Morrison who presided over the Marcus Williams case, from 43 clients you've helped through the Second Chance Project, and from 15 ex-convicts you've reintegrated into the legal profession." She picked up a document. "Helena Martins Rodriguez, by unanimous vote of this council, your license to practice law in the state of New York is fully restored, effective immediately." Helena broke down in tears. 12 years. 12 years of pain, guilt, and punishment. And finally, official redemption. James was waiting outside and hugged her when she came out. "Welcome back, Attorney Rodriguez." The news spread quickly. The Second Chance Project organized a celebration, but Helena insisted it be something small, intimate. Marcus Williams, now 19 and a law student at Columbia University, was one of the first to congratulate her. "You saved my life," he said, and now I'm going to dedicate my career to doing the same for others. Because of you." Kevin Santos, now a full attorney at the project, hugged Helena. "You gave me a second chance when no one else would. I'll never forget that." Maria Lopez, the girl Kevin had defended, was there with her mother. She had graduated high school with honors and was going to college to study social work. "I want to help families like mine," said Maria. "I want other girls to know there are people like you who care." Amanda and Michael were there, now full co-directors of the project. Amanda approached Helena, emotional. "When I met you, I thought you were just a janitor," she said. "But you taught me that titles don't define people. Actions do. And your actions saved not just Marcus or Kevin or Maria. They saved me too. They taught me what it really means to be a lawyer." Richard Blackwell made a short speech. "Helena Rodriguez humbled me, not with anger or revenge, but simply by being excellent at her work, being compassionate when I was cruel, being fair when I was arrogant. She showed me it's never too late to change, to be better." But it was Mrs. Williams, Marcus's mother, who made Helena cry the most. "My son is alive because of you," she said, holding Helena's hands. "He has a future, has dreams, has life. You're an angel, Helena. An angel God sent when we needed one most." "I'm not an angel," said Helena through tears. "I'm just a mother who couldn't save her own daughter, but maybe I can honor her memory by saving others." 3 years after that first night, when Helena dared to speak in the conference room, the Second Chance Project had grown to 5 offices in New York, with plans to expand to other cities. Helena was at the cemetery where Sophia was buried, something she did every month. She placed fresh flowers on the grave and sat on the damp grass. "Hi, my dear," she said softly. "I came to tell you the news. We saved 12 more teenagers this month. All innocent. All almost convicted by a system that didn't care to look beyond appearances." She wiped away a tear. Kevin finally got full partnership in the project. He's training 2 new lawyers now. And Marcus. Sophia, you would be so proud of Marcus. He's like a son to me now. He calls me every week, tells me about his classes, his dreams. Helena gently touched the headstone. "I couldn't save you, my love. That's a regret I'll carry forever. But I'm trying to honor you the only way I know how, by saving others, giving them the chances you didn't have, fighting against the system that failed you." She stayed there for another hour, talking to her daughter, sharing victories and challenges, feeling that somehow Sophia was proud. 5 years after the Marcus Williams case, Helena was invited to speak at Columbia University's law school graduation. Marcus was among the graduates, with honors. Helena took the podium, looking at the young faces full of hope and ambition. "Future lawyers," she began, "you're about to enter a noble but imperfect profession. You're going to encounter injustices, cases that seem impossible, clients the system has already condemned before they even step into a courtroom." She paused, her eyes finding Marcus in the audience. "And at some point, you're going to have to choose. Choose between the easy and profitable path, or the difficult and meaningful path. Between protecting your reputation or protecting a life. Between statistical justice and real justice." Helena smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "I've been where you are. Young, ambitious, full of dreams. Then I was destroyed by a system that should have protected me. I spent years cleaning the floors of offices where I was once a star. But it was at the bottom of that pit that I discovered my true purpose." "Because justice isn't about never falling," Helena continued, her voice echoing through the auditorium. "It's about standing up for those who can't. It's about using your privileges, your education, your skills to give voice to the voiceless. It's about seeing humanity where others see only statistics." She looked at each face in the audience. "Some of you will work at big corporate firms. That's fine, but I challenge you to dedicate at least part of your time to pro bono cases. For teenagers like Marcus Williams, who was weeks away from having his life destroyed by false accusations. For families like Maria Lopez's, who need someone who understands that survival sometimes looks like crime in the eyes of a cold system." Marcus was crying openly now, as were several other graduates. "And if you fall, and many of you will fall, Because we're human and humans make mistakes. Remember that falling isn't the end. It's just a chapter. What you do after the fall is what defines who you really are. Helena came down from the podium to thunderous applause. Marcus found her afterward, his diploma in hand. "You came to my high school graduation when no one thought I'd make it there," he said. "And now you're here at my law school graduation. Helena, you're more than my lawyer. You're my family." Helena hugged him tight. "And you're my son, Marcus. In all the ways that matter. Sophia would have loved you." "I'm starting work at the Second Chance Project next month," said Marcus. "I want to give back. I want to be for other teenagers what you were for me." "You're going to be extraordinary," said Helena. "You already are." 7 years after that fateful night, when Helena dared to speak, she was in Washington, D.C., invited to testify before a congressional committee on juvenile justice system reform. "Committee members," she said, sitting at the witness table, "I came here representing the thousands of teenagers who are thrown into a system that judges them before knowing them, that assumes guilt based on zip code, skin color, or economic situation." She presented alarming statistics about wrongful convictions of minors, disproportionate sentences, lives destroyed by ambitious prosecutors and overworked public defenders. "But I also came to tell stories of hope," Helena continued, "of Marcus Williams, who today is a lawyer fighting for the rights of others, of Maria Lopez, who's becoming a social worker, of Kevin Santos, an ex-convict who rebuilt his career and now trains others to do the same." A senator raised his hand. "Ms. Rodriguez, your personal story is remarkable, but some might argue you're an exception, that most ex-convicts can't or won't rehabilitate." Helena looked at him directly. "Senator, with all respect, that's exactly the mentality that perpetuates the problem. We assume people are irreparable. That one mistake defines them forever. But in 7 years, the Second Chance Project has reintegrated 47 ex-convicts with legal training. Of those, 44 are still actively practicing, with 0 incidents of recidivism." She opened a folder with documents. "These aren't exceptions. They're people who never had a real chance to show their worth. And when we give that chance, when we offer structure, mentorship, and purpose, they thrive." Another senator leaned forward. "And has the project been effective in reducing wrongful convictions of minors?" "In the last 7 years," said Helena, "we've defended 287 teenagers accused of serious crimes. In 183 cases, we achieved full acquittal because evidence proved innocence. In 89 cases, we negotiated fair deals for young people who really made mistakes but deserved appropriate sentences, not draconian punishments. Only 15 were found guilty and received full sentences because the evidence was incontestable." She paused, letting the numbers sink in. "That means 64% of the teenagers we defended were completely innocent. Let that sink in. More than half of these young people would have been wrongfully convicted without adequate representation. How many lives would we have destroyed? How many Marcus Williams would be rotting in prisons right now?" The room fell silent. "My daughter Sophia was one of those statistics," said Helena, her voice breaking slightly. "She was judged, convicted, and thrown into a system that broke her. I couldn't save her, but I can honor her memory by saving others. And that's what all of us, legislators, lawyers, citizens, need to do. Stop seeing teenagers as threats to be contained and start seeing them as people who deserve real justice." The committee voted unanimously to recommend significant reform in the juvenile justice system, citing the Second Chance Project's work as a model. 10 years after that night, when Helena was just the invisible janitor, the Second Chance Project had expanded to 23 states, with more than 200 lawyers, many of them reintegrated ex-convicts, working to defend unjustly accused youth. Helena, now 58, was at Sophia's grave again, but this time she wasn't alone. Marcus was by her side, as were Amanda, Michael, Kevin, Maria, and dozens of others whose lives Helena had touched. "Hi, Sophia," said Helena, kneeling before the headstone. "I brought your family to meet you." "Yes, family, because that's what we are now." She looked at everyone gathered around. "Marcus here," she pointed. "Just won his 10th consecutive case. He's becoming the legend I always knew he'd be." Kevin opened the project's second office in Chicago. Maria is finishing her master's in social work and is already working with families affected by domestic violence. Helena wiped away happy tears. And Amanda and Michael, well, they got married last year. They're expecting a baby. A girl. They're going to name her Sophia. Amanda approached, placing her hand on Helena's shoulder, to honor the girl we never met, but who changed all our lives. Helena stood and hugged Amanda, both crying. "My dear Sophia," Helena whispered, "you're not here anymore, but your legacy lives on in every teenager we save, in every life we transform, in every second chance we give. You didn't die in vain, my love. You became a movement." That night, there was a celebration to mark the Second Chance Project's 10 years. More than 1,000 people attended, saved clients, trained lawyers, donors, progressive judges, and activists for justice. Former Judge Patterson was there, now fully retired but still active in judicial reform. He approached Helena. "I'll never forgive myself for what I did to you and Sophia," he said, "but I spend every day trying to be better, trying to honor her memory by doing the right thing." "That's all any of us can do," said Helena gently. "Try to be better than we were yesterday." Richard Blackwell took the stage to make an announcement. "Friends, on behalf of Blackwell and Associates, I'm pleased to announce a $5 million donation to the Second Chance Project." The room exploded in applause. "But more than that," Richard continued, "I want to announce that Helena Rodriguez has been nominated for the New York Bar Association's Order of Merit, the highest recognition our profession can offer." Helena took the stage, stunned. From invisible janitor to one of the state's most respected lawyers. The journey seemed impossible, but there she was. "I don't know what to say," Helena began, looking at the crowd of faces, so many of whom she had helped, so many who had helped her. 10 years ago, I was cleaning offices, invisible, broken, without hope. And then I saw injustice happening, and I couldn't stay quiet." She searched for Marcus in the audience. Marcus Williams was just another teenager being thrown away by the system. But when I looked at him, I saw my daughter. I saw every young person who is judged before having a chance to prove their innocence. And I knew I had to try. Helena took a deep breath, her voice firm but laden with emotion. "This award isn't mine. It's Sophia's, whose memory motivates me every day. It's James Morrison's, who believed in me when no one else did. It's Amanda's, Michael's, Kevin's, and all the lawyers who chose purpose over profit. It's every client who trusted us with their lives." She looked directly at the audience. "And it's for every person who's ever been judged, convicted, and discarded. For every ex-convict who wants a second chance. For every teenager the system has already decided isn't worth saving. This award says, you matter. Your lives have value. And there are people fighting for you." The ovation was deafening. People stood, applauding, crying, celebrating not just Helena, but everything she represented. Hope, redemption, real justice. After the ceremony, Helena found a quiet moment on the terrace, looking at the lights of Manhattan. James joined her, now 80 but still with lively, bright eyes. "Do you remember that night?" he asked. "When you walked into the conference room with your cleaning cart?" Helena laughed. "How could I forget? I was terrified. Every cell in my body told me to stay quiet, to remain invisible." "But you didn't," said James. "You spoke. You risked everything to do the right thing. And you changed not just Marcus's life, but hundreds of others." "You changed my life too," said Helena. "When everyone saw me as just a janitor, you saw me. You remember who I was and believed I could still be that person again." James placed his hand on her shoulder. "Helena, you were always that person. The janitor job didn't diminish you. You dignified that work just as you dignify everything you do. Because true value doesn't come from titles. It comes from character." 15 years after that fateful night, Helena was in her office, now much larger, with a panoramic view of Manhattan, when she received an unexpected letter. It was from Sophia. Or rather, it was a letter Sophia had written years ago, before she died, and that had been kept by a juvenile detention center counselor who finally found it among old files. With trembling hands, Helena opened it. Dear Mom, if you're reading this, it probably means I'm gone. And before you spend the rest of your life blaming yourself, I need to tell you some things. I know why you did what you did. You tried to protect me. You tried to fight for me when no one else would. And you paid a terrible price for it. Seeing you being taken away in handcuffs, knowing you were there because of me, was the worst moment of my life. But Mom, I never blamed you. Never. You were the only person who really believed in me. The only one who saw my innocence when everyone else just saw a poor Latina girl who was obviously guilty. This place is breaking me. I won't lie. The other girls are cruel. The guards don't care. And every day it gets harder to remember who I was before all this. But when I think of you, of your strength, your courage, how you never gave up on me, it gives me strength to continue one more day. If something happens to me, I don't want you to give up. You're an incredible lawyer, Mom. A fighter. And the world needs people like you. Don't let my case destroy you. Use it. Use our story to help other girls like me. To fight against an unjust system. To be the voice I didn't have. Promise? Promise you'll get up again? That you'll fight for other people the system is throwing away. I love you more than anything, Mom. And I know you're going to do incredible things. Because that's who you are. You're Sophia. Helena collapsed, sobbing. 15 years carrying guilt, thinking she had failed her daughter. And here was Sophia, even in her darkest moments, believing in her, encouraging her, giving her purpose. Marcus entered the office, saw Helena crying, and immediately knelt beside her. What happened? Helena handed him the letter with trembling hands. Marcus read, tears streaming down his face. Helena, he said, his voice broken, she knew. Sophia knew you would do exactly what you've been doing. She believed in you before you even believed in yourself. For so long I thought I had disappointed her, Helena sobbed, that she died thinking I abandoned her. No, Marcus hugged Helena tight. She died knowing she had the bravest mother in the world. And look at what you've done. Look at how many Sophias you've saved. You kept your promise, even without knowing you'd made one. 20 years after that night, when Helena was just the invisible janitor, she was back at the building where it all began. But this time, not to clean. The Second Chance Project had leased 3 entire floors of the building, now serving as national headquarters. Helena walked through the corridors, remembering when she pushed her cleaning cart here. She remembered the humiliation, the pain, the feeling of being invisible. She stopped at the old conference room, the one where she had dared to speak for the first time. It was empty now, but full of memories. Thinking about the past, asked a voice. It was Richard Blackwell, now 75 and semi-retired, but still an active consultant for the project. Remembering how it all started, said Helena. How you treated me that night. Richard grimaced. One of my biggest regrets. I was arrogant, blind to my own privilege. I saw titles, not people. But you changed, said Helena. We all changed. That's what I want people to understand. Change is possible. Redemption is possible. No matter how far you've fallen or how many mistakes you've made. The door opened and Amanda and Michael entered with their 8-year-old daughter, Sophia. The girl was vibrant, curious, and had the eyes of the aunt she never knew. Aunt Helena! Shouted little Sophia, running to hug her. Helena picked up the girl, her heart swelling. Hi, my dear. How's school? Great. I'm learning about lawyers. The teacher asked me to bring someone I admire to speak to the class. Can you come? Helena looked at Amanda and Michael, who smiled encouragingly. It would be an honor, said Helena. The next week, Helena was in a 3rd-grade classroom, surrounded by bright-eyed children. So you clean bathrooms? Asked a boy, confused. I used to clean, Helena corrected. For many years, that was my job. And there's no shame in that. Every honest job has dignity. But now you're a famous lawyer, said a girl. How did that happen? Helena smiled. It happened because I saw something wrong, and I couldn't stay quiet. A boy was being unjustly accused of something he didn't do. Everyone had given up on him, but I knew he was innocent. How did you know? Asked another boy. Because I looked, said Helena simply. I really looked. I read the documents. I searched for holes in the story. and I found the truth. Little Sophia raised her hand. My mommy says you save people. Is that true? Helena thought carefully. I don't know if I save people, but I try to give them fair chances. I try to make sure they're really heard, really seen. Because everyone deserves that. Even bad people, asked a boy in the back. Especially people who made mistakes, Helena replied. Because mistakes don't define us. What we do after them is what defines who we are. She looked at each child. You're going to make mistakes. We all do. But that doesn't mean you're bad people. It means you're human. And humans deserve second chances. 25 years after that fateful night, Helena was 73. Her hair now completely white, but her eyes still had that same fierce determination that had sustained her through everything. The Second Chance Project had become a national institution, with offices in all 50 states and international partnerships in 15 countries. More than 3,000 teenagers had been defended, with an 89% success rate, and 247 ex-convicts with legal training had been reintegrated into the profession. Marcus Williams, now 42, had taken over as executive director of the project 5 years ago, allowing Helena to finally slow down a bit. But she never stopped completely. She still supervised complex cases, trained new lawyers, and gave lectures around the country. On this particular morning, Helena was at the cemetery again, but there was something different this time. Next to Sophia's grave there was now a statue, a teenage girl looking up with hope, hands extended as if reaching for justice. The plaque at the base said, Sofia Rodriguez, 1992 to 2008. Her life was stolen by injustice, but her legacy transformed thousands. Helena gently touched the statue. Look what you started, my love. All of this, all the lives saved, all the second chances given, started with you, with your courage, with your story. Marcus arrived, pushing a wheelchair. Inside was James Morrison, now 95, frail but still mentally sharp. Had to bring the old man here, said Marcus, smiling. He insisted. James looked at the statue, tears streaming down his wrinkled face. Beautiful. Sophia would have loved it. James, said Helena, kneeling beside the wheelchair. Thank you. For everything. For believing in me when no one else did. For giving me the chance to be who I was again. Helena, said James, his voice weak but firm. I didn't give you anything. You were always extraordinary. You just needed to remember that. Kevin Santos arrived with his wife and 3 children. He had become one of the project's most respected lawyers, specializing in domestic abuse cases. I brought my family to meet Sophia, said Kevin, so my children understand why I do what I do, why second chances matter. Maria Lopez, now a 30-year-old social worker, was there with her own 2-year-old son. I want him to grow up knowing Sophia's story, knowing that justice isn't just about laws, but about humanity. Amanda and Michael arrived with little Sophia, now 13 and extraordinarily similar to the original Sophia. The girl placed flowers on the grave. Aunt Sophia, said young Sophia, I never met you, but I feel like I know you. Mom and Dad tell me stories about you all the time, about your courage, about how you were kind and fair, and about how your story changed the world. She looked at Helena. And when I grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer like Aunt Helena. I'm going to fight for people no one else fights for. I'm going to give second chances, because that's what the Rodriguez family does. Helena hugged the girl, crying, You're so much like her. Not just in appearance, but in spirit. Sophia would be so proud. That afternoon, there was a special ceremony. The city of New York was dedicating a juvenile justice center in honor of Sofia Rodriguez. It was a modern building, designed to be welcoming instead of threatening, with counseling rooms, a law library, and offices for defense attorneys. The mayor made a speech. Sofia Rodriguez never had a fair chance, but her mother, Helena Rodriguez, ensured thousands of other young people did. This center is dedicated to ensuring no child is judged, convicted, or discarded without adequate representation. Helena was invited to cut the ribbon. Her hands trembled, not from nervousness, but from overwhelming emotion. 25 years of work, tears, victories, and losses culminating in this moment. Sophia, said Helena, looking at the sky. This is for you. Every child who walks through these doors will have what you didn't have, a fair chance. Someone who really looks. Someone who really cares. She cut the ribbon, and the crowd applauded. Marcus was crying. James, even in his wheelchair, was standing, supported by Kevin. Amanda and Michael hugged their daughter, and dozens of former clients, now successful adults, celebrated the woman who had saved their lives. 3 months later, Helena received an unexpected call. Ms. Rodriguez? My name is Thomas Wright. I'm from the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. We'd like to speak with you about a nomination. Helena almost dropped the phone. Excuse me, what? You've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for your work transforming the juvenile justice system and reintegrating ex-convicts. We'd like to discuss next steps. Helena had to sit down. The Nobel Prize. She, a former janitor, a former convict, was being considered for one of the world's greatest honors. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything now, said Thomas. But the nomination ceremony is in 3 months in Oslo. We hope to see you there. In Oslo, 3 months later, Helena was on stage at Oslo City Hall, wearing an elegant but simple suit. The room was full of dignitaries, world leaders, and social justice activists. The Nobel Committee president read her citation, Helena Martins Rodriguez, for her extraordinary courage in transforming personal tragedy into global purpose, for saving more than 3,000 teenagers from wrongful convictions, for reintegrating 247 legal professionals society had discarded, and for proving that redemption is not just possible, but essential for a just society. Helena went up to accept the medal, her legs trembling. When she reached the microphone, she looked at the audience, saw Marcus, Amanda, Michael, Kevin, Maria, and dozens of others she had trained and mentored. And in the back, in a wheelchair, was James, smiling with pride. Ladies and gentlemen, Helena began, her voice echoing through the hall. 25 years ago, I was nobody, a former convict cleaning offices at night, invisible, broken, without hope. If you had told me then that I'd be here today, I would have laughed through my tears. She held the medal. This prize isn't mine. It's my daughter Sophia's, who paid the ultimate price for injustice. It's James Morrison's, who saw value in me when I didn't see it in myself. It's every lawyer's, every intern's, every volunteer's who chose purpose over profit. And it's every teenager we saved, every ex-convict we reintegrated, every family we rebuilt. Helena looked directly at the cameras. But mainly, this prize is a message for every person who's ever been judged, convicted, and discarded, for everyone who made mistakes and thinks they don't deserve a second chance, for every mother who failed to protect her child and carries impossible guilt. Her voice filled with passion. You're not defined by your worst moment. You're not your mistake. You're not your fall. You are what you choose to do after. You are your courage to rise. You are your commitment to be better. And you deserve justice. You deserve dignity. You deserve a second chance. The audience rose in ovation. Helena looked up, imagining Sophia looking down, finally at peace. At 75, Helena finally decided to retire completely. Marcus and a new generation of lawyers would lead the Second Chance Project from here on. At her last team meeting, Helena looked around the room. So many young faces, full of passion and purpose. You are the future, she said. You're going to continue this fight when I'm no longer here. And I know you'll do it with excellence, with compassion, with justice. Marcus stood up. Helena, you're not retiring. You're ascending. You've built something that will last generations. And we promise to honor your legacy.